Wicked. Brrr, here we are.
Yeah.
Peter Loupelis. How are you, my man?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm really, really, really good. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling grand. Feeling warm.
I'm loving the hat. I'm so loving that hat.
That's pretty good. Is that a bear paw on your yin yang?
Yeah.
And a human
paw?
Paw?
Bear and man. I don't know. It's the yin and yang of bears.
Are you a hunter or something? Or what's the significance there?
Oh God, no. I mean, yeah, I'm a hunter of truth. No, just bears are really cool animals, actually. I remember from my time in the States many years ago that I was told that bears kind of represent because they dig roots and eat roots and berries and things. So they're in the people that I was hanging out with, they were kind of like considered the totems, let's say, of the women healers, specifically of medicine, of like herbalist type healers. So I guess I carried that into, or the idea of that, when I was studying Chinese medicine, learning herbal medicine. It was just like, oh yeah, bears. And there's just cool creatures,
They're pretty incredible, aren't they? Have you met many bears out in the wild? Or?
No, unfortunately.
Maybe fortunately, actually.
Fortunately. I did there was a funny time in the States when I went for it. So this is in South Dakota, so it's Smokey the Bear country, all the pine trees and the mountains and stuff. And one day I was left to my own devices. Everyone was out. I was staying with the family. And I decided to go for a walk. There's no fences or anything. So I just walked out the back door, and there's this creek, and I crossed the creek and went up the hill and through the mountains. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is awesome. Because in Australia, you do that kind of thing. You go for a walk in the bush. Anyway, it was awesome. It was fantastic. I got back and everyone's like, oh, so what'd you do today? And I went, oh yeah, I went for a walk up into the woods. And they're like, you did what? I went for a walk. And they're like, we've got like bears and cougars and stuff. You don't go for a walk in the woods. It's like, oh yeah, that's
unarmed.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
Classic. But is that something that would be like once a year someone would get eaten, or what's the kind of regularity?
I don't know. They're very frightened people over in the States.
Well, with good cause, with people in hotel rooms opening fire on
bears, cougars, and madmen with guns. Yeah.
What was the Chinese medicine you were studying over there or something? Or
no, I studied that here. That was long before my Chinese medicine. Maybe not that long before, but a couple of years before I started studying. I was over in the States.
Tell us a little bit about that journey. How'd that eventually
come about? Chinese medicine.
About the TCM, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did you get into Chinese medicine? Yeah, a series of quite interesting, moments of synchronicity leading up to it. But essentially, what happened was, I got really sick. This was after I returned to the States. I actually had came down with what's called Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune hyperthyroid disorder, and
thyroid, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's a hyperfunctioning thyroid, but Graves' disease specifically is the autoimmune version. So you can have a hyperfunctioning, highly functioning thyroid, which means your metabolism speeds up. But Graves' disease specifically is the autoimmune version, which means your own thyroid cells are being recognized as a threat, and so your immune system starts to attack it. And that's what brings on then the hyperthyroid disorder. And I was seeing a Chinese medicine practitioner who I had found actually to treat my grandmother like years beforehand. And so in the process of doing that, I'd go back a step. I had already, by that stage, I'd done some study in Daoism. I'd begun my journey with Tai Chi. I had done I'd begun a short course on Chinese medicine massage. So I was already exposed to the ideas. And so when I was seeing him for that purpose, I was like, my curious mind, my sort of beginner's mind going, oh, okay, so what do you do and how are you treating and what are you treating?
Yeah.
And he just said, you know, like you've actually got a real, like you get what we're talking about. You know, I mean, I know you went to Prof Wong's and you'd started the TCN massage and your Tai Chi journey. And but he's like, you have a grasp of the concepts that he said he'd never encountered in a Westerner before, but not even in let's say a Westerner, a student. He's Vietnamese and a Daoist. So he's like, you should probably think about doing this. And so I didn't think anything of it, continued to get treatment. And, you know, a couple of years later, I've got a daughter, newborn daughter, and he's like, what are you doing? Just go study TCM and you know, make that your career, you know.
How long ago was this?
You've got an act, so do it. When was this? This is so my daughter was 6 months when I started studying. So she's now 12.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. So, and that was that. But yeah, a number of really interesting, those synchronicities beforehand. So I met this Aboriginal elder medicine man years before that in my journeys. And the first thing he said to me when we met, he just looked me in the eyes and he said, oh, you do acupuncture. And I was like, no. I don't even think I'd started Tai Chi yet. I'd had some acupuncture by that stage. My first Tai Chi teacher was this little old lady, Beverly, who was she was like that sort of old school Victorian era medium. She spoke with that, she was Australian, but she spoke with that English accent like you heard on the ABC in the old days.
Like you hear on ABC radio, ABC Jazz.
Yeah. That's it, the ABC, the Australian English, you know, the Australian English ABC radio voice. And she was like proper and this little old lady, but she was also like a psychic medium of all things. And she just would randomly, so she's teaching us Tai Chi, which is great, and Qigong. And then she'd randomly say things like, oh, you and I were in a past life, and I was a physician and you were my apprentice and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay. Like I'm into that stuff, but I kind of still go, oh, yeah, weird when people do weird stuff like that. Just like, really? Yeah. I'm a skeptic.
It's kind of unbelievable, even though you probably, if you know it's right or it feels right, and it's like still unbelievable. Even to this day, some of the magic and, you know, like the work we do, work with energy, work with healing, you know, work with like clearing, all of this stuff. And I'm like, people will walk in with an ailment and then walk out just like healed or like totally it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Even though it's almost provable, like it's almost predictable that I still get surprised. Like even to this day, I have an idea that it's probably going to work, and I know it's probably going to work. There's this knowing, and yet still I'm like bamboozled. Like, wow, it's incredible that this stuff works.
Yeah, that's that beginner's mind, really. It's the continuing sense of awe, and maybe a healthy degree of skepticism is good. You know, just keep us on our toes.
So Tai Chi was before TCM or before the...
Yeah. So because I was, going back to the 90s, was studying anthropology and history and things like that. And I did a subject on, I was fascinated with mythology, and that was part of why I chose the subjects. I kind of did choose subjects that were part of a grand scheme, so to speak. I chose the subject that was like a comparative religion subject, and I did it as a history subject, but it had multiple codes. It was multidisciplinary kind of work. And it was on a comparative study of the religions of the East. So we looked at, you know, Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism and Daoism and all the various bits and pieces. Came across, that was the first real time I came across Daoism. I was always fascinated with like the yin yang symbol as a kid. I was always drawing it. And I think one of my favorite movies was I was in grade 6 or 7, was like Big Trouble in Little China, and I just loved that.
Very good film,
it was
yeah.
cool. Yeah. And so, but it was the first time I was exposed to like actual Daoist writings, Daoist philosophy, and
So what was tell us just a quick intro for those who are unfamiliar with Daoism or what it is, and just give us just a quick little, what you were exposed to at that time that got you even more intrigued.
Yeah, I say the main thing was, and I guess that for me, it's still the opening line of the Daodejing, which is like the text, let's say, and written. We don't know when it was written, but many people make lots of claims, but it's at least maybe 2,500 years old, right? And the first line of it is the Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. So that the idea is that everything that exists is this thing called the Tao, everything is the Tao. And it exists, but if we try to talk about it, we can't. And this is why Taoism gets confused as as a mystic tradition, which it is, a mystical tradition, mysticism, because it does depend on direct experience, and that you can directly experience this, but when you try to articulate it, the problems of language, of course, are going to come through, because the understanding is that there is no words. My cat's being a dick. There are no words to describe it, because, and it goes on, that first chapter also goes on to say, every time you try to label it, then you're saying something is something, but you're leaving out what it isn't, especially if that is the case. So being interested in anthropology and linguistics, still am, but at the time with the degree, there was also a linguistic component to it. So it really delves into the notion of not just, what is the world and what is the mystery, but more so the flaws and the inherent problems of human perception, human biases, and the language with which we articulate and express those things. So the Tao is everything. And everything that is in existence is part of the Tao, because it kind of manifests itself into, a person, a rock, a tree, the individual blades of grass, etc., etc. So similar to Gnosticism in that sense, and sort of that Judaic Christian kind of Gnostic sense. And the other thing that really grabbed my attention, I think, was the idea that the Tao, the word itself and the concept, it's actually a verb. So it's not a thing. The Tao is not a thing. It's an ongoing process. So God or the world or the universe is constantly changing. It's constantly changing.
What would be the closest translation in English?
Hey? Well, the way.
The way.
That's how that's the traditional, that's the one that everyone really sticks with, the way. But I also like the process. But
the process, yeah.
The way, I guess we understand it in terms of process-oriented work.
Cool. And where did that lead you? Did that lead you, like, because I imagine you were studying it for mental, like, intellectual process?
Yeah. Well, then I was like, my thing was, I want to know more. And interestingly, even looking back, was like, it wasn't, I need to read more of text. I mean, I could do that anyway. And that was just something I had to do anyhow. But it was like, I need to know more. But it wasn't go find a Daoist temple or go join a club or a group. Or it was like, go learn Tai Chi. So inherently, something in me said,
How did you connect those two?
Tai Chi,
How did you
Tai
connect?
Chi is the application of these ideas. Yeah. Is the embodiment of. I was always, again, as a kid, I always wanted to do like kung fu or karate, but never did.
What would be the equivalent if you did have, for instance, is it like Hinduism? Is that like the application of yoga? Or if you have, like, what would be the equivalent?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I actually think, having now done some yoga, some sort of hatha yoga, tantric yoga, is that those ideas are in the embodiment of the asanas, and certainly just say qigong as the whole umbrella, Tai Chi being included in that. Those ideas are also present in the movements.
Yeah.
Which I think I actually learnt more from then Tran, who was my practitioner, who then, as part of my treatment, said, you got to start doing the Tai Chi with me.
Okay.
So I started doing his Tai Chi. And so I started getting more of the transmission of, okay, we're doing this movement, and this is like, there's a story behind the movement. There's a story behind the symbol of the willow tree, flowing in the wind. It's, yeah. So yeah, it's learning philosophy through the body, through the movement.
And what did you find? Did you find any effect in your life? Did you find like any kind of benefit or any kind of changes in yourself or in your mentality or even your physicality, like with the grave stuff? Or
yeah, well, at the time, the Tai Chi with Tran was part of the treatment. So I'd turn up, he'd give me acupuncture and the cupping and all sort of body work. He'd give me herbs. He told me to change my diet, and he's like, you have to do the Tai Chi. So I'd go to Tai Chi Sunday morning, every bloody Sunday morning, and do this stuff. And it was part of the treatment, absolutely. And even through studying later and then as a practitioner, the difference that adding that into your treatment regime as a client makes a massive difference. So it's not just that you are exercising the body, but you're doing it in a very different way, because yes, you're stretching, opening the joints and stretching the sinews, but you're also sort of stretching and opening the channels. So different movements help with the flow through those channels, and those channels have interconnections with certain, of the organ systems, which means that if more qi and blood are flowing through the channel and through that organ system, that and also the interconnections between the organ systems, that's part of what is the vision of health, of being in that paradigm.
So that was, you definitely found an increase in your remedy, like in your wellness. And
yep. There are still people today that don't believe that I had that disease, like doctors. They're going, that's not possible. You can't have had Graves' disease and now you don't have it. Because I basically every year since, I've had blood tests yearly.
So what happened? You got to a point where it left the body, or like what was the?
It was within maybe about 18 months.
Yeah, of just.
And apparently that's not possible.
Yeah, impossible.
Because they say, even with the thing, what the mainstream, let's say mainstream conventional wisdom is that if you've got an autoimmune disease, that's it. So your antithyroid antibodies in Graves' disease, shouldn't actually ever disappear, but they did. And it's like, the last GP questioned me. I was like, well, you guys did the tests and you guys did the diagnosis and you guys are doing the test now. You tell me. Either that GP was lying 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it something that is replicable? So is it something that you've worked with people since, like, because you doing this work now and you're doing the acupuncture and this stuff at the moment? Or
I have. Unfortunately, I've never had anyone stick around long enough. A lot of people just go, I just can't do this anymore. Or they just want to go, they'd rather take the Western med. It's a lot easier. It's a lot cheaper. Let's face it, it is. I made a deliberate choice. There was a ritual I did that actually changed a big part of my life and had me heading in this direction. And so that's why I was like, I need to commit to this, even though that I have to sacrifice a lot financially.
Care to share what that ritual was? Or?
Sure.
Don't have to if you don't want to.
It was before, so nothing was shifting. I'd only really just started with a GP who was very, very good, and my Chinese medicine, like maybe 3-4 weeks, something like that. So it was very new. But I'd been had this problem for a good 8-10 months, something along those lines. I'd had it for about 10 months before I even went to a GP and got diagnosed. So massive weight loss, massive goiter. Yeah, I mean, I was burning calories sitting down. That's how fast. No sleep, anxiety. My eyes were popped out. I was just, so I'd started with that, and I got a sense that something needed to shift in my life. So I did a ritual, and I actually did I had been given some DMT to smoke, and it's not actually something I've talked about I've written about my recovery, but I've never talked about this part so much. I've talked about it, but never written about it. But yeah, had a DMT ritual. I'd spent a lot of time in the States in the Pine Ridge and Rosebud reservations in South Dakota. So I was very familiar with essentially Lakota ceremony.
So for those who don't know, just give a quick fill in on what DMT is.
Dimethyltryptamine. It's an entheogenic. It's entheogenic herb. And this particular lot that a friend had actually given me was actually sourced from indigenously, native to Australia, because there are lots of plants that contain this particular molecule, and most notably found in many acacia species around the world.
Correct.
So yeah, this particular, what I had actually come from somewhere in New South Wales. So that's as far as I know. But it was an indigenous acacia DMT, and so I did it as a ceremony with a pipe. So
talk to us about in the Dakota tribes that you were just mentioning as well, like how
so that was when I was over in the States in South Dakota. Spent 3 months basically. The second time I was there, I spent 3 months on and off the reservation, hanging out with people, going to gatherings and powwows and sun dances and ceremonies and sweat lodges, and basically learning. And yeah, that was it in a nutshell. For 3 years, I'd been doing a lot of sweat lodge work, been doing a lot of apprenticing in that regards.
And this was all while this was going on, or while the grace was going on?
This is all before. So I came back from the States and pretty much then had Graves' disease, developed it, that's a very interesting story in itself. But I won't go there right now. But this ritual, I didn't do it. I followed the process of a traditional Chanlupa ceremony, which is the pipe ceremony. I don't have a pipe, so I wasn't using that. I just used a bong. But it was the same thing. I prepared my space. I cleaned everything so that there was like no trace of like tobacco or marijuana or anything like that. I was living up in the hills at the time in Emerald. So,
beautiful.
I did everything ritualistically. I had my shower, prepared my space. I laid everything out. And then I was like, set an intention, send my prayers, what I'm going to do. Bang, had the DMT and had this wonderful conversation with a being that essentially morphed out of the bushes outside, who was this Aboriginal elder, and we had this wonderful conversation. And then
So you were outside or you were inside, and it came
outside?
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Outside, just outside. Yeah, it was living in Emerald, so it was beautiful, like lots of trees, and beautiful day actually. It was around about this time of year, the springtime. Yeah, and we had this conversation, and then he morphed into the goddess Athena.
Do you remember the conversation?
The upshot of the conversation, not so much the details, but the upshot of the conversation was, you need to start living your truth. This problem that you have is you not expressing yourself.
Expression, yeah.
I never knew anything about chakras at the stage. This is subsequent. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, you're not expressing yourself. You're not living your truth. You actually do need to step into the role of healer. You need to let go of the life that you've been living. You're unhealthy. I mean, it's the stuff my practitioner was saying too, but it was like, this is not your life. this is what you need to do. You're a
What
healer. You need to go
what
for
kind
it.
of lifestyle were you living prior? Was it like just like soft drinks and junk food and not exercising, that type of stuff, or?
Yeah, you know, the typical worked, you know, 9 to 5, lugging shit around.
Doing something you didn't love, or?
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed where I worked, but there was no. I'd kind of left. I'd been doing the honors. I'd been doing my honors here in, you know, anthropology at the time, and I actually left because it was like, this is not for me. And the world of academia, as much as I love it, it's not going to help people. Like I just knew it was wrong. I'd done my time, and that was not my path anymore, but I had no idea where I was going.
So it's telling you this, and then it morphs into the goddess. Continue.
Yeah, and
What goddess?
like
Just the
Athena.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so the full thing with the helmet and the thing. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, and it was like, the healing arts. I mean, that was interesting. Like, that's the phrase, the healing arts.
Yep. I'm getting chicken skin as you say this, because I've had a similar experience.
Yeah. Which is, I think, is why the memory of that has really come back quite strongly in the last year or so, because it's for me going, what I'm doing now is like, no, I'm not doing healing science. I'm doing healing arts.
Yeah. I've had exactly the same transmission downloaded straight during a meditation, during a psychedelic meditation as well, about 3 hours. And a voice, it wasn't necessarily a being, just of, you must pursue the healing arts. And it was exactly that, the healing arts as well. So I was like, then 6 months later, I met my healing teacher as well. So definitely can relate to that experience.
Yeah. And that's why I've pulled out of Chinese medicine now, because it's becoming more and more of a science. The way that and I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's not my thing. And I guess I've always been grounded. Then with my practitioner became my mentor, Tran. He became my mentor, and I was very much immersed in the Daoist way of doing medicine. Even when I was learning, he'd go, "That's not how we do it. You know, I know that you're learning that in the textbooks, but that's not how we do it. We do it like this." You know, a lot more of it being an art form. And of course, medicine can be an art form. Any GP will tell you that. The art of differential diagnosis is, you've got to know the stuff, but it's the intuition that kicks in and says, those tests are suggesting this. So,
And so from that experience, that kickstarted sort of the healing of yourself, or?
Yeah. Spent the next, pretty much then that, so that, as I said, that was about this time, like November, or, somewhere around there. Pretty much spent up until the next December healing.
Yeah, amazing.
Wasn't working. I was on like no work, sickness. I mean, I was pretty bad. It was quite advanced. The fact that the first thing that they wanted to test was whether it was cancer, because I was that like skinny. And that, of course, is one of the red flags for cancer, is unexplained rapid weight loss. It wasn't really that rapid. It's just that I kind of didn't do anything about it for like 10 months or a year before I'd gone, typical male.
Just ahead, nobody.
It was serious. I couldn't function. I mean, I wasn't sleeping, and metabolism's racing, anxiety through the roof, forget concentration or anything like that.
So this was when you went in on the Tai Chi and the TCM, like seeing your practitioner and stuff.
I did combine. It was, so my GP and my Chinese medicine practitioner were communicating. My GP had started studying TCM. So he was really cool. I was on the carbimazole, but on a very lower dose, and we were actually tapering it off because he would touch base with my Chinese medicine practitioner and That was, and the approach was let the carbimazole, which is a drug, basically calm the thyroid down so that the Chinese medicine could attend the root of the problem. So because in theory, if you stop the carbimazole, the hyperfunctioning thyroid will come back because you've got it. That's it. You've got an autoimmune disease. It's just going to stick around. But the Chinese medicine was, I guess you could say, was attending to the autoimmune, was telling my body, hey, you'd stop attacking the thyroid. So yeah, we stopped the carb. I was only on the carbimazole from memory for maybe six or by the middle of the year. So it was 8 months, maybe.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'd stopped it, but then continued with the Chinese medicine, building up my strength, building up my chi, my blood.
What kind of is it, like once a week you were seeing your Chinese medicine practitioner?
Started off, it was fortnightly. Trans really minimalist.
And then the Tai Chi as well, was that like once a week? Or
Tai Chi was weekly.
Yep.
The classes were weekly. The idea is you practice, which I did daily, as we learned. Because we'd go do the class and we'd learn 3 or 4 moves, and repeat. And that we just then practice. And then the next week is learn the next ones. So my practice is what I've always up to what I've learned. And diet.
And that is, what kind of, can you overview your diet? Like, is there just don't eat certain things or?
Well, for me, for that one in particular, because there was so much, I guess, heat, what we needed to do was build more yin. So I basically had to stop eating the food that I normally ate, which was usually junk food, but also lots of spicy. So the only food I knew how to cook was curries, and they would be just hot curry. And I did actually smoke at the time. It makes a lot of sense that the only thing, my senses were so dulled from smoking that the only thing I could taste was like super hot, spicy food. So yeah, I had to drop all the hot, spicy, and obviously all the junk food, which I didn't quite stop, but I reduced massively. Yeah. But then going back and having vegetables and rice and freshly cooked foods and things like that. But the main thing was just quit the chili, quit the pepper,
so you could cool down,
spices.
Yeah. And for you, that going forward, are you still practicing? Are you practicing Tai Chi, Qigong? Is that something that you're teaching? Is that where are you at now? I know you said that you stopped the healing sciences, but are you still doing the arts, or where you're at now?
Yeah, it's interesting because ever since I started teaching Qigong, I haven't been practicing Tai Chi as much. But this year it was like, why aren't I doing that? I guess I got into a groove as a teacher, always wanting to ensure that I'm practicing what I'm teaching instead of necessarily practicing what I needed. So, that's something I'm bringing back more into my daily practice is Tai Chi rather than sort of little Qigong forms, because the Tai Chi cycle is beautiful and gentle, but really powerful.
Are we? What kind of stuff are we talking? 5 elements? Or what kind of Tai Chi forms are you?
Tai Chi, it's just called Daoist Tai Chi, because I'd ask Tran, what's our Tai Chi called? And this big little student, what's our Tai Chi called? He's like, Tai Chi. and I've actually blogged about this before, and I'm like, what's our lineage? Like what's our school? And he's like,
Tai Chi.
Does it matter? Like, will it make a difference to your practice if you know who taught me? I'm like, well, I guess not. So he's thinking about lineages, now I think part of that is the cultural thing too, not just the Daoist thing, but he's from Vietnam and not from China. So it's like, it's just Daoist Tai Chi. Have a name, because you can't name it.
Once you try to name it, yeah. Is that something that you've been teaching Qigong how long now? And is that just for your...
I first stepped into it. I first stepped into the teaching role 2014 because I said, I don't know if I'm ready enough, because I was practicing by that stage. I was like, I really want to teach it. Because I went to him and I said, I need you to teach me some more, because I really want to teach my clients, Tai Chi and Qigong. He's like, just teach them. Like, you don't need to know more. You know the form, you can do the form, just do it. Just teach your patients. Just start the same way. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, it started in 2014 was my first class, and I started with the Tai Chi first. Yeah. And then when I moved back to Melbourne, I ran some Tai Chi classes, but noticed a lot of people weren't quite into, they wanted something a bit more immediate and convenient. So then I sort of...
as in they didn't have to progress through.
Yeah, because, it takes a bit to learn the form. Because it's a long form too. It's a half an hour, well, 20, depends how fast you do it, 20 to 30 minute practice. Yeah. Whereas it was also easier for people to come along maybe to one or two classes and just learn some Qigong stuff that they could do in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I started teaching a lot of Qigong, and that's actually when in the process of then practicing all the different types of sets and forms that I knew that I'd learned, developed what I'm calling now the true nature form, which isn't really a form actually.
A formless form.
It's more of a model. It's more of the idea of stepping into the moment and asking yourself, what do I need in my practice? What do I need today? And that's kind of how it developed, because then I developed this form that was this movement because it's going to do this for this part of the body, and this movement from that form, and this movement from that form. So, and then they all change anyway.
I imagine that would need you'd need a base, you'd need a better foundation in what that is, in order to be able to bring it in and then perform the movement,
Yeah. So that's then what I taught was like, this is fundamental stuff, and always with the intention. I always make it clear in the manuals that I write for the students and that I teach when I teach them, is like, the idea is you learn this stuff. This is like learning your ABCs, and then once you learn how to write and this is the metaphor that Tran always used. Once you've learned how to write each of the letters in the alphabet, then you can start creating words, and then you learn how to write words. You can write sentences, and then your handwriting becomes its very own style, and that's how it happens. So here are the fundamental movements and ideas, and then when you get proficient with that, and you can drop into that internal awareness so well that your body just goes, move this way, move that way. So it's becoming harder for me to teach, because I actually want to teach people to actually almost like free movement. But how do you do that? So
that's the challenge, isn't it?
Qigong form, but yeah, you do need to kind of copy the teacher in that sense and learn, draw an A, draw a B, draw a C, right? Precisely. So you do need. And Qigong, all Qigong movements in all of the forms that I've studied and that I've looked into, because my academic head still is present always and wants to know everything there is to know about everything. All of those Qigong movements are the basic different types of movements incorporated into a Tai Chi cycle anyway.
Exactly.
Whether it's, so it's the weight shifting of the feet, it's the way that, it's the movement of the arm or the bend or, whatever. So Qigong is like the lexicon of Tai Chi and martial arts.
Precisely. And for anyone who's keen to get into it, because we have audience from all around the world, what would you recommend as your first step, whether it's Tai Chi, Qigong, traditional Chinese medicine? Like, is it just pick up the the Google, the yellow pages, I'm going to say, but I think it's too
Yellow
many software.
pages. Does
So,
anyone still use
so I was going to say, pick up your laptop and type into Google, or like, what would you recommend for people trying
Yeah,
to
find so yeah, it'd be a case of find someone locally and that's convenient, or if it's a referral, obviously, do that. But I still think convenience is the main thing, because if it's a big thing to travel far to reach a teacher or a practitioner, then maybe, you know, the energy or the motivation is not there. Depends on how hard your motivation is, of course. But yeah, find someone that you resonate with. Like I've seen on YouTube a great form, and I just watch it and I go, I want to learn that, but I can't find anyone teaching it. So that's the other thing. So look at videos on YouTube, and if you feel drawn to, you know, a particular style or something, maybe find, what's the name of it? Is it a name? Is it a lineage? Is it a school? Like, and suss out whether you can find it.
And touch on that a little bit. Touch on like the direct transmission, or watching through a screen versus learning through somebody who's there.
Yeah, this is I'm struggling with this, because there's a lot of people telling me you should. I mean, I've got stuff on YouTube, but like, you should, you know, put some online courses up. I'm like, yeah, but I do think there is something missing. And I guess the only reason I say that, I certainly think you can learn the movements. I don't think it's easy, because I think it's hard to watch something and try and emulate it. But there is something,
because you could be doing something totally different than what you think you're doing.
But assuming you know that you've got it and you can mimic exactly what's happening on the screen, there's stuff internally that happens in Qigong that you don't know. So you can copy the movements. It's not just the movements. There's other things that happen. I think if it's just straight, maybe for stretching the body, it's probably okay, if that's what your intention is. But if you're wanting the mindfulness and the meditative aspect and the medical healing aspect, there's a lot happening internally that might not come through in the video. It depends on how well it's been constructed. And this is what I'm playing with in developing an online course, is that all that stuff somehow needs to be transmitted as well. Breathing techniques,
where the attention is, and what's being focused on, the mind intention versus versus the what the chi is doing, what the jing is doing.
Yep, absolutely. So that all, and also, I guess, based on my experiences, both with Beverly back then, the crazy little lady, and Tran, and some of the other teachers, Qigong teachers that I've had, like, because we learnt it as part of our degree too. And Prof Wong, and lots of teachers teach me different things. There's always other stuff that comes through, but that's in that moment transmission where something just comes through and they say blah 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 blah, and it makes a difference to the practice, as into your personal practice. Or they say something specifically to you, like, hey, I mean, Tran always would tell me, drop your shoulders, because he could see that I was actually holding myself tensely. And so all he needed to say was drop my shoulders, and I would drop my shoulders, but then would feel the whole body just shift state. So, maybe just the words, I got anchored into some sort of downshift into my state or something. So that's the thing. You're not going to, that personalized bit too of, hey, if you move your feet out, because this is the thing, sometimes there's a lot of dogma in this too. I read books and they're like, your feet have to be straight ahead, and other people are like this. And then, like, I guess the beauty of Tran as a teacher was like, okay, your body is this way, I want you to stand like this.
Yeah.
So that personalized touch. which I struggled with even in my own teaching, because everyone wants me up the front so that they can copy what I'm doing. But I want to go around and go,
adjust.
elders and like, do this. Your body wants this, you know. So I'm hoping eventually to have a couple of students who are proficient enough that they can be up the front, and that everyone can copy them while I come around and
that's the idea.
Adjust.
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's the stuff you miss that you can't do watching a video, unfortunately.
Well, it's great. I think it's a good start. It's a good intro, I believe. Like, all right, get started. I think something's better than nothing. You know, I think like doing once a week is amazing. Like you're gonna get so much benefit from once a week. You know, even if it's just watching a video, but then find someone who can actually, then you can get the direct transmission. You're still getting, in a sense, a direct transmission through whatever intention's coming through the screen as it's being recorded, obviously. But there isn't that, you know, that adjustments that can be made or that word that can be said that'll trigger the specific, you know, that's the transmission that wants to come through for whoever it is. But I believe that getting started, but don't use it as an excuse like, oh, so-and-so said video is not as good, so I'm not going to do it. You know, it's like, just jump on, follow the video, and then, you know, do your best to find someone that you can practice with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, bang on. You know, and there's always people doing stuff in the park. You can always approach them and say, can I just follow along? Or and they might be a teacher, or they might know. They might give you the number of their teacher or something. You know.
100%. And what has been, I guess, maybe the key learnings? We've talked Daoism, we've talked Gong, we haven't talked flow state, and we're combining. I know we mentioned this earlier, something like combining Gong and TCM and such, and then utilizing that to actually get into state or get into a flow and utilize that for whether it's your, you know, your goals, your intentions, or whatever it might be. What do you have to say on this? What experience have you got on this?
Yeah, flow. Okay, so the key with all that practice is I recognize when I started learning more about high performance states and flow states, I was like, oh yeah, of course, this is what the goal is in whether it's Daoist, Qigong, Buddhist traditions or medical tradition, you know, that the idea is to turn off that monkey mind, that conscious mind, and just unconsciously allow the body to move, which is where that free embodiment, that free Gong, whatever, you know, which is how the true nature form developed, was just being in a flow state and just doing one movement and then going, now I'm going to this, and now I'm going to do into this, and now, you know, and there's been a couple of movements that I haven't even learnt. They literally just happened because I was in a state. And then sometimes there's a couple of times that's happened in Tai Chi as well. And it's like it's that funny moment where I realize I'm in flow.
You're in some position. You're like, what is this position? Yeah.
Drop out of it. Oh, look, I'm in flow. Oh, shit. You know. But there's been a couple of times recently when I'm in flow. I'm actually not doing the form. I'm doing something else, but just shut up and keep going and just let it happen. So you can become aware of flow as well. In my experience, you become aware of flow, but just get back into it. Just go, oh, yep, that's what's happening. Just, it's okay. Just keep going. Don't stop. Just keep going. And it's quite beautiful because, especially in an embodiment practice, sometimes, and this comes back to the Tao, we want to express something, but we're so used to needing to express it maybe with words. Artists and musicians, of course, kind of know this. They will express themselves with their painting or their drawing or their music. You know, someone just picks up a guitar and just boom, and you know, whatever comes out, that's what's inside of them. Writers will do the same, just bang. For some people, if you're not trained in an art form, writing, painting, music, etc., movement is a way that it can happen. Some people maybe even have problem talking, or they're just, no one's around in that moment. Who are they going to talk to? You know, so moving the body, and this is what I think, like, you know, all the sort of 5 rhythms and like Jules's like mojo work, all that kind of, that sort of, what do you call it? Ecstatic dance, dance, you know, that kind of thing. Is because
movement practices,
yeah, all they're doing is like, there's some guy, someone's playing some music and going, go for it, you know, but it's like dance with an intention, like just don't move your body to the beat kind of thing. But you can express yourself and work out an emotion or a problem just through moving the body. It doesn't need to be elegant dance. It might just be sitting there wiggling your hips and doing something weird with your arms, or what. It doesn't really matter. And this is something that in process-oriented psychotherapy, Arnold Mindell's work was a lot about this. So I do this now with clients. I'm like, if you don't have the words to express what you're feeling, get up off the chair and start moving the body. You can do that. Or a hand gesture. Like, can you do a hand gesture that is expressing how you're feeling, you know? Or a posture. Maybe you want to stand a certain way. So it's allowing the whole body and the neurology that's throughout the whole body to activate and kind of work it out. And that's be your own healer kind of thing. Because when that qi gets stuck, when it becomes stagnant, that's when you get the tightness or the anxiety, or you know, whatever it is. But if you can move it, just whatever, move the body. If you can't talk about it, if you can't release that qi that way, it will free up and it'll move and it'll literally work itself out.
Is there some little tidbits like that? You have clients come in with a common ailment, a common issue, a common challenge that you then go, you know, I know every case is going to be different and it's going to be specific for that person, but are there any kind of exercises, any kind of mindset shifts, any kind of little, you know, hacks, I guess, flow hacks of the mind or flow hacks of the body that you prescribe to people like to deal with? It might be anxiety, it might be insomnia, it might be stress, it might be tension. Are there any like that's one, obviously you can shake it out and move it. Are there any other little cool little bits that you can share just that might be helpful for some of the listeners?
Yeah, so my go-to, which it's really easy and anyone can then do it, is, and I'll direct people to put their hands there because that helps with drawing the attention.
So for those who can't see us, for those who can't see us,
there. So that area just below the belly button, you know, the womb, if you're a female, but basically placing the hands just below the belly button, between the belly button and, you know, and the pubic, and breathe, and just closing the eyes and breathing into the belly. So expanding the diaphragm. It's not the belly, but so breathing into that. And it's like, when you breathe into it, keep your awareness of the breath entering and going all the way down into the belly. And then on breathing out, it's leaving again. So you're breathing in and you're filling up the belly, breathing out again. This is a technique called song in Chinese. And the idea is that when you're breathing in tranquility and the vitality of heaven and earth. And then when you're breathing out, you're actually releasing from the body the tension. So you're breathing in tranquility and you're breathing out tension. And your awareness is where your hands are, which is that spot just on the belly. And you try as much as possible just to stay present to the breath entering, the expansion of that belly, and then breathing out, the air leaving, and the contraction of the belly. And that's the sort of that subtle movement of the hands. You know, the hands will kind of do this, you know.
For those who can't see, again, because we have audio only of this, so.
Oh, okay, sorry. So that, yeah, if you're putting your hands on the belly, when you're breathing in and the belly's like expanding, you just feel the hands sort of move very subtly, like with the rising belly and then falling back onto the body.
Mm-hmm. So that's like a go-to. So that's like a
and I
across the board remedy for a lot of things.
Yeah. Stage one, just get used to. I say it's dropping your awareness to the belly, and breathing and just keeping it simple. And notice everything sort of quiets and the body will start relaxing. And there's a reason for that. Is all the carbon dioxide is actually being expelled and there's more oxygen going in, so the blood's becoming more oxygenated, yada, yada, yada. But also the second stage of that is then, it's a metaphor, but I say listen to the belly, listen to the voice in the belly. What is he or she saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because so we call it the lower dantian, and that is the core, the center of our being is there. That's our center, the lower dantian. That's the source. That's where the source chi comes from, the original chi, and that's where our gene is. That's where we've come from,
The creativity, the creation.
Yeah, and the power and the vitality. So zheng qi, like all the zheng qi, the yuan qi is there. The fire, the Ming Men is there. The gate of life, the fire that lies at the gate of life is there. There's a void. There's said to be in the very center of the dantian. There's said to be a void, and that void connects to the very center of the universe. So that when you're breathing in, yes, through the nose, you're breathing oxygen from the world, from Earth in, but through the void in the center of the dantian, you're actually breathing in from the very center of the universe, and then breathing out again. So there's like two sources of input. It's the toroid, exactly. Yeah. So
it's powerful stuff.
Listen to the core, because that's also where our true nature then dwells. It's a metaphor, but that's where he or she dwells.
About listening as well. That's interesting you say, because that's something that is a way that I like to look at meditation. It's rather than meditating and, sitting down and closing the eyes and sort of, it's almost like zoning out. It has this conception about meditation. Oh, meditation is, navel gazing and sort of, it's like not sort of disengaging almost. It's like, just all the worries are out there and I'm just calm and tranquil. Whereas I prefer to look at meditation as an act of paying attention and of listening. So as soon as you say listen, the awareness goes, it opens up, the ears open up, the eyes are paying attention. You're like, you're on the edge of your seat. You're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And that you turn on. It's very difficult to zone out and fall asleep, which is what happens when you meditate. Or if you're lying down meditating, you're bound to fall asleep. Whereas if you're upright and you're paying attention, you go, hey, listen. As soon as you say that, the awareness comes on. It switches on. So I love that how you mentioned listening to the dantian. It's very, very, it's just a slight shift in the mindset of it, but it's very powerful.
Absolutely. The other thing I will do if I know, like some people don't respond to listen, some people are visual. So I'm like, look.
It's the same concept, just a different sense, isn't it?
Yeah, different, because people have different predominant sensory, channels. Or some, if people are like, more that kinesthetic type feel. So in class, when I've got class and I've got 12 people in front of me, and I don't know, I have all sorts of people there. It's about an experience. What do you experience? What do you sense? And that way, it keeps it a little bit more open, so people can hear, people will see, they'll feel, or some people just get a sense of something. It doesn't matter how, but look, listen, feel, experience.
Pay attention, isn't it? Excellent.
And that's the thing. It's just paying attention.
Simple concepts, but very powerful. Hey, Peter, I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon. I just wanted to say thank you for giving us your time and your energy here. I thoroughly appreciate it, and I look forward to doing it again sometime if you're keen.
Yeah, that was actually, it was really nice to rap with you about this kind of stuff, because it's, yeah, when you can talk with someone who also speaks the lingo, it's really cool.
It's cool. I thoroughly appreciate it. And just would like you to finish on a couple of things. First one just being flow for you. So we did touch on flow. Living life in the flow zone is the name of the podcast. What are some things which help you fill your flow bank and help you get into flow? Are there some practices, some mindsets? I know you talked about daily practice earlier. Is that something that came easily to you, or something that you've brought in gradually? Or like, yeah, tell us some of the sort of hacks and
a bit of a challenge. No, look, for me, it's that simplicity of pause, breathe, attention. That's, if I want to get into flow, I need to at least start that. If not, then maintain it. Doesn't matter whether I'm writing or Tai Chi. It's always just that. It's like stop, pause everything, center, become present to the breath and my attention and my whole being, like physical being, emotional being, mental being. Like if there's thoughts, if there's emotions, it's okay. Just be present to them, but keep that pause, breathe, attention, pause, breathe, attention. Riding a bike, driving a car. And so that for me is the act of presence, and presence is what, leads to flow for me. So
excellent. Yeah. And finally, just how can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Website's being built at the moment, but you can, of course, always go bookmark peterloupelis.com. And that's it's being rebuilt at the moment. So it'll be the hub of everything. But other than that, more than happy to connect with people on Facebook, because that is a social site. So it's all about being social. I am writing things on Medium. I'm writing things on Steemit, for those more cryptocurrency-based type people, which is my new obsession.
Trust me, we've got plenty more to talk about on that.
Another Peter Loupelis on Facebook, business page or personal profile is fine, and at peterloupelis.com. Yeah, all the social media channels. Just Google my name.
Find me. Excellent, and come and say hey.
I don't really use Twitter and Instagram much. It's not my thing. But
all right, cool. Sorry, you Twitter nerds and your Instagrammers.
Yeah.
Facebook it is. Website it is. And your email, and you've got a contact form or an email on the website, I imagine.
Well, yeah. At the moment, it's just got here's my number because it's being rebuilt. But yeah, perfect. It will be. Yeah.
Excellente. So I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks again. And until next time, keep the flow growing and the growth flowing.
Yeah. Take care, y'all.